Welcome back, my weirdlings. We have stepped into quarter 3 of Raven's Lorecast, the season of stewardship. If quarter 1 was about remembering where we came from, and quarter 2 was about crossing thresholds into becoming, quarter 3 is about responsibility, about what happens after the awakening, about tending what we've built, holding what we've learned, choosing who we become when no one is watching. This is the season of sovereignty, of discernment, of craft, of devotion. Not because perfection is required, but because power means something different once we understand its consequences. So wherever you're listening from, kitchen, car, porch, workplace, walking trail, or beneath the stars, I'm glad you're here, because this quarter, we are not chasing transformation. We are learning how to carry it. All right, my weirdlings, let's begin. There is a moment, quiet, almost easy to miss, when something in you shifts. Not dramatically, not in a way that announces itself, but in a way you can feel, if you're paying attention. A subtle knowing, a sense that something no longer fits the way it used to, that who you've been is no longer who you are becoming. And nothing has changed on the outside. Your life still looks the same rooms, the same people, the same patterns waiting for you to step back into them. But inside, something has already moved. And that's the moment we're standing in tonight. Not the beginning, not the breakthrough, the space just before you decide what comes next. Because becoming doesn't start when everything is clear. It starts the moment you can no longer pretend you don't see it. And from there, you are given a choice. Not all at once, not in some overwhelming, life-altering decision, but in small, quiet ways. In how you respond, in what you continue, in what you allow to remain, and in what you begin to release. This is the threshold. And thresholds are not comfortable places. They don't offer certainty. They don't offer resolution. They offer awareness and the responsibility that comes with it. Because once you notice something, it stays. Not demanding, not forcing, but present, waiting to see what you'll do with it. And that can feel heavy because it means you can't unknow it. You can delay, you can soften it, you can tell yourself you'll come back to it later. But it will still be there, quietly, patiently. And that's not a punishment. It's an invitation to step forward differently, to move with intention, to participate in your own becoming instead of waiting for it to happen to you. So before we go any further, before we name anything or try to understand it, just take a breath. Let your shoulders drop. Let your body settle. You don't need to figure anything out right now. You don't need answers. You don't need a plan. You just need to notice what has already begun. Because whatever has been shifting in you, whatever has been asking for your attention, whatever has been circling just beneath the surface, that's where we're going. Not somewhere new, not something outside of you. Here, closer than you think. And as we move forward, you may recognize parts of yourself in what unfolds. Not all of it, not at once, but enough to see, enough to feel, enough to begin. So take another breath and step with me into it. There are stories that teach you what to believe. And then there are stories that show you what you already are. This is the second kind. Not a single myth, not a single culture, not something you can trace to one origin point and say, this is where it began. Because these three, the raven, the peacock, and the doe, do not belong to one tradition. They belong to a pattern that shows up again and again across time, across land, across people. Whenever transformation is not just about change, but about becoming. And becoming is not one movement. It is not a single revelation. It is a process. Messy, layered, repetitive, and more often than not, uncomfortable. Because becoming asks something of you. It asks you to see, to show, and to soften. And most people are only comfortable with one of those at a time. But the path we're walking today requires all three. So we begin where all real transformation begins. Not with light, not with beauty, not with grace, but with the one who sees, the raven. The raven is not gentle, not in the way people like to romanticize. Raven is not here to soothe you. Raven is here to notice what you have been avoiding. Across cultures, Raven shows up as something deeply misunderstood. In Norse tradition, Odin sends out his two ravens, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory. They travel the world, gathering everything. Nothing is hidden from them. Nothing is too small. Nothing is too uncomfortable. And when they return, they tell the truth. Not the polished version, not the version you would prefer, the truth. And in many indigenous traditions across the Northern Hemisphere, Raven is creator, trickster, boundary walker, the one who steals the light, the one who breaks things open, the one who refuses to leave the world as it is if it means something essential remains hidden. Raven is the moment something clicks, the moment you realize, oh, that's what this is. That's what I've been doing. That's what this pattern actually looks like. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. That's the first stage of becoming. Not change, not action, seeing. And it's tempting, right here, to believe that seeing is enough, that awareness alone will shift everything. But it doesn't. Because awareness without movement becomes stagnation. And this is where most people stop. They see, they understand, they name the pattern, and then they stay exactly where they are. Because the next step is far more uncomfortable. The peacock. Now, people misunderstand the peacock too. They think it's vanity, performance, decoration. But that's a surface reading. The peacock is not about showing off. The peacock is about being seen, fully, deliberately, without shrinking. In Greek mythology, the peacock is sacred to Hera, queen, watcher, the one who sees everything. And in Hindu traditions, the peacock is associated with Kartikeya and Saraswati, warrior and wisdom, action and knowledge. The feathers themselves, eyes, hundreds of them, nothing hidden, nothing turned away. The peacock does not reveal itself by accident. It chooses when to open, and when it does, It does so completely. This is the second stage of becoming, expression, embodiment. Taking what you have seen and allowing it to exist in the world. And this is where fear shows up, because it's one thing to know something privately, it's another thing entirely to live in alignment with it, to speak differently, to choose differently, to allow others to see you differently. Because when you change how you show up, you change your relationships, your patterns, your expectations, and not everything survives that. So the peacock asks a very specific question. Are you willing to be seen as who you actually are? Not who you've been, not who is easiest to maintain, but who you know yourself to be now. And that question is where many people hesitate, because visibility comes with consequence. It disrupts, it reveals, it requires, and still, even that is not the final stage. Because becoming is not just about seeing and showing, it is also about how you hold what comes next. And that is where the dough enters. The dough is the quietest of the three, the one most often overlooked, because softness is easy to dismiss in a world that prioritizes force. But the dough is not weak. The dough is aware. Every movement intentional, every step responsive, fully present in the body, fully attuned to the environment. In Celtic traditions, the deer often appears as a guide, a liminal being moving between worlds. In many indigenous traditions, deer carry gentleness, awareness, and deep relational intelligence. The doe does not rush. It does not force. It does not override its own instincts to prove something. It listens, and it responds accordingly. This is the third stage of becoming, integration. Because once you have seen, and once you have shown, you are left with something new, a different version of yourself, a different way of moving through the world. And the question becomes, can you live with it? Can you sustain it? Can you allow it to be real, not just in moments of clarity, but in the quiet, ordinary spaces of your life? Because this is where transformation either stabilizes or collapses. Without the dough, without that grounded awareness, that embodied presence, change becomes performance, temporary, unstable, something you visit instead of something you live. But when all three are present, raven, peacock, doe, something else begins to happen. Not a sudden shift, not a dramatic breakthrough, but a steady, undeniable alignment. You see clearly, you show deliberately, you live sustainably. And that is alchemy. Not turning lead into gold, but turning awareness into reality, turning truth into structure, turning who you are becoming into how you actually live. And this triad, this pattern, is not something you move through once. You don't complete it. You cycle through it again and again and again, each time at a different level, each time with a different layer of yourself. Raven returns when something new needs to be seen. Peacock rises when something needs to be expressed. Doe steadies when something needs to be lived. And the more you work with this pattern, the more quickly you recognize where you are. Am I seeing? Am I showing? Or am I learning how to hold this? And that awareness is what keeps you from getting stuck. Because becoming is not about perfection. It is about movement, intentional, responsive, alive. And by now, you've likely felt where you are in this cycle. Maybe something has already surfaced, something you've been circling, something you've been avoiding naming, or maybe something you've already seen but haven't yet allowed yourself to live. Wherever you are, that's where the work is. Not ahead of you, not behind you, right here. And the sky above you is reflecting that exact same process. Because what we're about to step into is not the moment of seeing, not the moment of showing, but the moment of choosing what stays, what goes, what becomes part of the life you are actually building. And that is written in the sky. By the time we reach August 9th, the sky is no longer asking you to feel. That part has already happened. The waves have come, the truths have surfaced. The conversations, whether spoken or swallowed, have already left their mark. And now the sky shifts. Not louder, not sharper, but quieter, heavier, more deliberate. This is where the work changes, because this is not the moment of revelation. This is the moment of decision. The moon has moved into its waning crescent phase, just a sliver left in the sky, about 20 to 25% illuminated. This is the final breath before darkness, the part of the lunar cycle where nothing new is being built, only what remains is being revealed. This is release energy, not dramatic release, not the kind that makes a scene, but the kind that asks you very simply, what are you done carrying? And that question lands differently depending on how honest you've been with yourself over the last few weeks. Because this moon does not rush you. It does not push. It does not demand action. It waits. And in that waiting, it becomes very clear what is still attached to you and what is ready to fall away. And it does this while sitting in Taurus all day, grounded, slow, unmoving. Taurus does not care about your ideas of transformation. It cares about what is real, what is sustainable, what your body can actually hold. So while the moon is asking what you're ready to release, Taurus is asking what actually nourishes you. Not in theory, not in identity, in reality. What feeds you, what steadies you, what supports the life you are trying to build. Because this is where people get it twisted. They think becoming is about adding more knowledge, more healing, more practices, more identity. But real becoming is selective. It is built as much from what you remove as from what you keep. And the sky right now is very clear about that. Because while the moon is grounding you, the sun is still blazing in Leo, fully in its power now, around 16 to 17 degrees. This is not tentative expression. This is not quiet identity. This is be seen, be known, be unmistakably yourself. But here's the tension, because Leo wants expression and Taurus wants stability. So the question becomes, can you be yourself in a way that actually lasts? Not just a moment of truth, but a life built from it. And that's where the alchemy begins. Because this is not about choosing between who you are and what is stable. It's about refining your life until those two things match. And the rest of the sky is making that process unavoidable. Venus is still in Scorpio, And by now, that energy has deepened. This is no longer subtle. This is not surface level connection. This is what is real, what is honest, what has depth. And anything that cannot meet you there feels unbearable. Not inconvenient, not annoying, unbearable. Because Scorpio does not tolerate illusion in relationships, not with others and not with yourself. So if something has been shallow, performative, or held together by habit instead of truth, you are feeling that now. And you are being asked to decide whether it stays. Mars has shifted into Cancer, which means action is no longer fast or detached. It is emotional, protective, instinctive. You are no longer reacting from the mind. You are reacting from what you feel is worth protecting. Your home, your people, your energy, your sense of safety. And that can look like care, or it can look like defensiveness. It depends on how aware you are of what you're responding to. Because Mars in Cancer will defend things that no longer deserve protection if you don't choose consciously. And that brings us to Mercury, still retrograde, still in Cancer, still pulling you back through old emotional patterns, old conversations, old versions of yourself. But here's the difference now. You've already seen enough. You've already felt enough. So Mercury is no longer showing you something new. It's asking you, are you going to choose differently this time? And with the moon in Taurus, you don't get to answer that with words. You answer it with behavior, with what you continue, with what you stop, with what you allow to remain in your life. Because this is a body level decision now, not a mental one. And underneath all of this, there is a quiet but undeniable tension building. Because while things feel grounded on the surface, the sun is forming a square to Uranus, which means something unexpected is shifting. Something is ready to break pattern. Something is pushing against what has been stable, but not necessarily true. And you may not see it yet, but you will feel it as restlessness, as irritation, as a quiet sense that something no longer fits. And that is not something to ignore. That is the moment before change. Not explosive, but inevitable. And the moon, in its final crescent, is giving you space to respond before that shift fully arrives. Because once we hit the new moon, the next cycle begins. And what you carry into that cycle becomes what you build from. So this moment, this quiet, grounded, slightly uncomfortable space is threshold. Not the beginning, not the climax, the choosing. What stays, what goes, what you are willing to build from. And that is where this episode lives. Because the raven does not keep everything. The peacock does not show everything. And the doe does not carry everything. Each one chooses. And the sky is asking you to do the same. So tonight, you don't need to chase clarity. You don't need to force answers. You don't need to figure out your entire path. You need to notice what already feels finished, what already feels heavy, what already feels out of alignment with who you are becoming. And then, gently, deliberately, you begin to set it down. Because what you release here is what makes space for what you are about to become. And from that space, we move into making, into shaping, into something you can hold. And that is where we go next. There are some spells you don't cast with candles, No incantation, no circle drawn. You cast them with your hands, with what you choose to touch, to prepare, to taste, with what you allow into your body. Because becoming is not just something you think, it's something you take in, something you digest, something that becomes part of you. And this is a ritual you can eat. A simple summer bowl, 3 fruits, 3 forces, the raven, the peacock, the doe. Not separate, not competing, but layered, integrated, alive. This is called the berries of becoming. And before you begin, pause. Look at what you're about to work with. Nothing rare, nothing inaccessible, just fruit, seasonal, soft, real. And that's the point. Magic was never meant to be distant. It was meant to be lived. So we begin with what sees. The raven is represented by the shadow berry. You'll need 1 cup fresh blackberries or boysenberries, a bowl of cool water, your hands unhurried. These are the raven's fruit, dark, staining, unapologetically real. Blackberries do not arrive clean. They come with thorns, with wildness, with history. And across folklore, they have always carried edge. Some say they grew where something fell. Others say they rose from blood in the soil. Either way, they are born from rupture, transformation that did not ask permission. As you rinse them, do not rush. Let the water run over your fingers. Feel their weight shift in your palm. Notice the color, that deep, almost black purple. The kind of color that doesn't hide anything. And as you rinse, quietly to yourself say, I honor what has ended. I thank what taught me. No drama, no forcing emotion, just acknowledgement. Because Raven does not need performance. Raven needs honesty. Place them into your bowl. Let them fall naturally. They are the base, the shadow layer. Not something to remove, something to build from. Because nothing grows without it. Now the peacock, the radiant berry. You'll need 1 cup fresh blueberries. These are the peacock's offering. Small, perfect, self-contained. Each one whole, each one complete. The peacock is not about excess. It is about presence, knowing when to be seen and allowing it. Scatter the blueberries across the top. Don't dump them. Place them. Let them land where they will. And as you do, say, I claim my light without apology. Let that sit for a moment, because for many, that sentence is harder than anything Raven asked of you. Notice the contrast now in your bowl. Dark, blue, shadow, light. To represent the doe, we have the heartberry. You'll need 1 cup fresh strawberries, a small knife, and a steady surface. These are the doe's fruit, soft, fragrant, open. Slice the tops, then cut them in halves or quarters, whatever feels natural in your hand. And notice this, they are shaped like hearts, not symbolically, literally. Nature did that, not us, and that matters, because the doe does not force softness, it embodies it. Strawberries carry sweetness that does not require suffering, and for many people, that alone is unfamiliar. As you slice, slow down. Listen to the sound of the knife. Feel the resistance. then the give. As you work, say, may my softness be my strength. May I meet the world with an open heart. And if that feels difficult, good. That means you're being honest. Because softness is not easy for those who have had to protect themselves. Add the strawberries to the bowl. Let their red meet the dark. Watch the colors begin to blend. This is what healing actually looks like. Not separate, not clean, but layered, messy, alive. Notice once again the contrast now in your bowl. Dark, red, blue, shadow, heart, light. All present, all necessary. Now we're going to create the alchemist drizzle. We bind it all together. For this, you'll need 1 to 2 tablespoons of honey, 1 tablespoon fresh chopped mint, the juice of half a lemon, and the juice of half a lime. Optional, I highly recommend a small pinch of sea salt. It really brings out the flavor. In a small bowl, combine the honey and citrus first. Watch how it loosens, how it shifts from thick to fluid. That's transmutation. Then add the mint. Breathe it in. Mint does not whisper. It clears. It wakes. It brings you back into your body. Add a pinch of salt, if you so choose, just to ground the sweetness, to anchor the brightness. Stir slowly. There's no rush. Let it fully combine. Then pour in a slow, steady stream over the berries. Watch what happens. The shine, the way the colors deepen, the way everything becomes more itself. That is integration. Not becoming something else, but becoming fully what you are. Take your bowl somewhere you can breathe, outside if possible. If not, near a window, near light. Sit. Before you take a bite, pause. Look at what you made, because you did make it. This doesn't arrive this way. You chose it, prepared it, combined it. That matters. Take your first bite slowly. Taste it. Not just flavor, but contrast. The depth of the blackberry, the brightness of the blueberry, the softness of the strawberry. Let them blend until you can't separate them, because that is the point. After your first bite, breathe and notice your body, not your thoughts, your body, because this is where the work lands now, not in understanding, in embodiment. If you want to deepen this, stretch it across 3 nights, not as obligation, as rhythm. Night 1, focus on Raven. As you eat, reflect, what am I done carrying? Night 2, focus on Peacock. What am I ready to live out loud? Night 3, focus on Doe. What am I ready to soften toward? No journaling required, no performance, just presence, just noticing. By the time you finish this bowl, nothing dramatic may have happened. No lightning, no revelation, and that's exactly right, because this kind of magic does not announce itself. It integrates, quietly, slowly, completely. This is kitchen witchery in its truest form. Taking what is real, working with it intentionally, allowing it to become part of you, no separation, no performance, just participation. So eat slowly, deliberately, and let it remind you that becoming was never meant to be forced, only chosen. By now, you've felt where you are, not as an idea, not as something abstract, but as something closer, something that has been sitting in your life longer than you've been willing to name it. And now you can feel it. Maybe not completely, maybe not in a way you could explain to anyone else, but enough. Enough to recognize that something is already shifting. And this is where becoming stops being conceptual, because it's easy to talk about change when it lives in language. It's easy to understand patterns when you're looking at them from a distance. But this is where it becomes real, because now you're not being asked to see anything new. You're being asked to choose what happens next. And that choice is quieter than most people expect. It doesn't arrive as one defining moment. It shows up in small decisions, in what you continue, in what you stop, in what you allow to remain in your life, even though you now recognize it differently. Because here's the truth. You are already building something every day, through repetition, through habit, through what you tolerate, through what you return to. The question has never been whether you are shaping your life. You are. The question is, are you doing it on purpose? Because once something becomes visible, a pattern, a truth, a direction, it doesn't disappear. It stays. Not demanding, not forcing, just present, waiting to see what you will do with it. And you have options. You can dismiss it, tell yourself it's not the right time, that it's not clear enough, that you'll come back to it later. You can soften it until it fits back into the version of your life that feels easier to maintain. Or you can do something far less comfortable. You can take it seriously, not dramatically, not all at once, not in a way that requires you to have everything figured out, but in one small, deliberate way, because becoming does not happen in one sweeping decision. It happens in choices that seem almost insignificant until they begin to repeat. And that's where everything shifts, not in what you understand, in what you practice. So maybe tonight it's small, a conversation you stop avoiding, a boundary you hold instead of softening, a decision you make that aligns with what you already know instead of what is easiest to maintain. It doesn't need to be visible to anyone else. Most real change isn't. It happens in moments no one witnesses, a shift in how you respond, a refusal to return to something you now recognize as untrue, a quiet decision to build something different, one choice at a time. That is becoming. Not dramatic, not performative, deliberate. And it will ask something of you, because every choice you make now changes what remains, changes what grows, changes what becomes part of the life you are actively building. And you don't get to keep everything. That's the part no one likes to say out loud. Becoming requires selection. It requires release. It requires the willingness to let something end so something else can take its place. Not because you failed, not because it was wrong, but because you've outgrown it. So tonight, you don't need to seek anything else. You've already done the first part. You've seen, you've felt, you've recognized. Now, you decide what stays. Let that decision move with you into how you speak, into how you choose, into the small, ordinary moments where your life is actually lived. Because that's where this becomes real. Not in who you think you are, not in what you understand, but in what you keep. And if you find yourself unsure later tonight, tomorrow, Next week, you can return to this moment, not to find something new, but to see more clearly what has already been there the entire time. Because once you've seen it, you are already in the work. And from here, everything you choose becomes part of what you are becoming. If tonight stirred something in you, if a story lingered, if a question followed you home, if a truth settled quietly beside you, that's the work. Quarter 3 is about stewardship, about recognizing that wisdom is not what we learn, it's what we choose to do with what we've learned. If you'd like to keep walking beside me between episodes, you can find Raven's Lorecast on Facebook, Blue Sky, TikTok, Threads, and Instagram. That's where the conversation continues. The stories expand and the circle remains open. And if you're called to go a little deeper, Patreon is waiting when the time feels right. No pressure, no obligation, just another seat closer to the fire. Until next time, take good care of what you've been given and take good care of yourself. See you next week, my weirdlings.